Hello there and welcome to In My Opinion for No More Heroes 3.
While riding his bike, a boy named Damon notices something crash from space. From the crash, he finds Fu the alien and they become friends. Damon helps Fu build a big old rocket ship so he can get back home, but before leaving, Fu promises Damon that he will return. Well, 20 years pass and Fu comes back and he's all grown up and is a fucking violent psychopath. He makes a big announcement that he is here to conquer Earth, but he will give the planet a chance by holding some ranking fights to see if anyone on the planet can stop him. This is where our lead Travis Touchdown comes into play, as since he has nothing else to do, might as well fuck up some aliens and save the world. If you enjoy the type of story previous entries told, then you'll enjoy this one, as it's still bonkers, violent, and full of swears. All the characters are weird and full of personality, even the alien bosses, especially Fu. Fu is a great villain, as he's pretty entertaining and shows he's not fucking around pretty early in the game. I won't say how cause spoilers, but just know you'll go oh shit like I did pretty early. Travis is still the same old thirsty for battle and nerdy Travis, but just not as pervy, since he's married to Sylvia and has some kids. Yeah, if you're caught off guard by this info, then that's because you didn't play Travis Strikes Again, which directly connects to this one. Basically, to play No More Heroes 3 and know some of the faces you'll see and why some are back, you must play all the entries beforehand. I kinda wish they added some sort of info book in game, as while I enjoyed Travis Strikes Again, not everybody was interested and it's been a while since it came out. Also, there was a big character change to one of the long-standing characters in the series that I was not a fan of at all. No More Heroes is known for basically saying fuck you to the plot and just going nuts, so I never take it that serious, but one of the constants for it for the most part is characters' personalities. Like the other main entries in the series, this is a hack and slash. So you'll be waving your beam katana around as you kill some aliens. There are two types of swings you can do, which are a light and heavy attack. The light attacks are much faster than the heavy attacks, but the heavy attacks deal out more damage and can have a longer reach. You may have noticed this cat head in the lower right, which is known as a tension gauge. The more hits you get, the bigger it becomes, which in turn changes your combo change and not only looks, but also makes the chain longer. There's about 3 different levels to the tension gauge and Travis will usually yell out when it changes, and if you ever end up taking damage, the tension gauge will decrease slowly, and you will have to whack your way back up to the top. Travis still has a slow-mo dodge, which is done differently here, as instead of just pressing the direction while blocking and timing the enemy attack, you instead just have to press the A button at a certain time. The slot machine is still here and activates after each fatal blow, and if you're lucky, you will activate some special skills, like being able to perform wrestling moves while having to daze the enemy, or suiting up in some robot armor laying out a powerful attack. One of the new things added to the No More Heroes combat mechanics are skills. There are 4 to be exact, one that slows down enemies in a specific area, one that shoots down beams in a specific area, a drop kick, and one that lets you toss the enemy wherever you want. You start off with the dropkick skill at first and get the rest at the same time rather quickly. These skills do have a cooldown, so you won't be able to go spam crazy with them. Of course, as usual in No More Heroes, Travis must jerk his beam katana to recharge it, as it tends to run out of energy the more you use it, and if there is no power, then you just swing a metal stick around. If you're wondering, yes, you can play the game like the older titles and use some motion controls, and it works well. The only difference from No More Heroes 1 and 2 is to do a light or heavy attack, you don't need to hold your Joy-Con a certain way, and instead it just relies on the buttons. The combat, while simple, is still very fucking fun. There's just this gratifying feeling of seeing the impact of your attacks and pulling off wrestling moves. It also can get pretty hectic, and with the combat feeling so smooth and responsive, it doesn't come off annoying. In fact, out of the 3 main games, I will say the grunts here gave me a little bit more of a challenge than the usual No More Heroes grunt. There's even certain enemies that make you master your slow-mo dodge, as it's needed to land a good hit on them, and it doesn't feel cheap as the game does give you a visual clue when to press the button, which is when a little white effect pops up. The slot machine in this one is on the level of No More Heroes 2, as you'll land on something a good amount of times, not making it feel completely useless, as those extra surprises do come in handy in some fights. I don't mind the addition of skills, as it adds a little more fun to the combat, and nothing really beats drop kicking the shit out of an enemy. Though I will say the most useful or OP of the 4 is the slow down time and beam shooting ones, as combining these nets you a lot of easy damage and you can upgrade how fast the cooldown time is. The lock-on for the combat works about 99% of the time. I mentioned this since there were very rare moments when I was clearly locking onto an enemy right in front of me, only for it to lock onto someone else behind me that was far away, which was pretty frustrating. If you do end up kicking the bucket during a battle, the game does give you the option to retry the fight or head back home. If you choose the retry route, you have a chance to get a little prize with a roulette wheel, and depending on what character you land on, there's a chance for a good or bad prize. One of the good prizes is a damage buff for the fight, and when it comes to a bad prize, thankfully nothing really awful happens, with one being nothing at all, or you start with no battery so you gotta charge your katana right away. This doesn't put too much stress on you when the wheel pops up, making you go, let's see what I got. When you're not in combat, there are a few things you can do. First, let's start off with your motel base, which has increased in size somehow, and you even get a cool pole to go up and down. The top floor you can play with your cat, change your clothes, and save. I will say the shirts are better here than they were in part 2, which I had a hard time finding more than one shirt I liked in that game. Sadly, there is a lack of customization here compared to the previous entries, as you can only change your shirt, jacket, and that's it. There are some set outfits that change your overall look, but there's only a tiny bit, and as I mentioned, they are a set, so you can't mess around with them. Besides the usual interaction with your cat, there is a mini game you can play with him. It's basically catch as you try to throw the ball near the center of the circle. I honestly don't know if you get something out of this, as I got up to 15 catches, and since it gets harder, I just said fuck it and stopped. I tried looking online to see if anyone got something, and all I found was people who got higher than 15 and still got squat, so it's best not to rack your brain over it. The mid-level of your motel is the room you had in the previous games, and this is for saving as well and checking your action figures. These can be collected by spending your 2 different types of currency on 3 different machines. One is for all the assassins you face in No More Heroes 1, 2, and Travis Heist again. The second is for all the alien grunts and bosses you face here, and the last are battle dioramas of some fights you had. These are completely random, so be prepared to try and try and try again for no repeats. Once you unlock them, you can check them out on this floor, and they are pretty neat, but some of the textures on them could look better. On this floor, you're going to play a game called Deathman, though you get nothing out of it, but hey, it's a little entertaining and weird, so there's that. The final floor is pretty important, as this is where you can beef up Travis. There's the arcade machine that uses money to upgrade Travis's health, strength, katana energy, get new moves, and as I mentioned before, make the cooldown for skills much faster. All a must, but I will say the most important is your strength, health, and cooldown time, as the enemies in this game can take a good amount of punishment as you go along, and can deal out a big amount too. There's another machine that lets you make data chips that are permanent buffs for Travis, like increasing attack and slow-mo time, though you only have 3 equipped at a time. To make one will cost you materials that are rewarded to you after combat. I never really understood how to unlock more of these, and to be honest, I only used 3 specific ones and never really bothered with any other, since the ones I used were more than fine. Another thing you can do is replay any of the past bosses you've killed, though you don't get any cash for it, just parts for chip building. You can also challenge higher difficulty versions of the bosses, you just gotta beat it on the difficulty before it and pay some cash. This is pretty helpful if you're the completionist type so you can get all the chips or just want to up the challenge of the game. The last is the training room, just in case you forgot how to do some of the mechanics of the game. Now for what you'll be doing for most of the time besides combat, which is driving around the open world. Yup, they brought it back. Yay! Your start in Santa Destroyable will unlock 4 other areas you can explore as you proceed through the story. Just like other open world games where you can stand on top of something to show all the question marks on the map, you can do the same here. Only difference is you're unclogging toilets, which I gotta admit is pretty funny. If you saw my ramble on No More Heroes 1, you would know I hated the open world there, as it was rather dull and felt like it dragged the game, and well, I'm still not a fan here. However, I will say they made it a tiny bit more bearable, as riding with the new bike felt a bit more faster and smoother, and you can teleport to other areas once you unlock them, thank God. The main goal here is to clear designated matches to get certain crystals each time you have to fight a new boss, which are shown on the map just like most of everything else, so finding them is not that hard. There is a blue and red crystal version, but I could not tell the difference in either of them, as they were just kill the grunts and that's about it. After you're done with that, you must pay some cash to fight the boss. Yeah, just like part 1, we are back to making money for fights, but it never feels like too much, as there are plenty of ways to make cash and some are rather fast. First, you got your jobs, which can be things like taking out Godzilla-sized alligators with a tank, crashing a bike into some car, digging through some mines, and others. These are rather meh, and to be honest, after I did them once, I never bothered with them again, especially when there is easier ways to make money and get parts, which leads me to defense missions. The defense missions are gauntlet fights that can be 2 waves or much more, but they do let you know the amount before you jump in, which is a good thing since they can get rather long. There's also a chance it may ask you to fight a giant monster in space in your mech suit, which I gotta admit is fucking awesome, as it has you boosting around while you shoot missiles and beams, and while controlling Travis here is different and never felt cumbersome. This is the best way to earn cash, as not only do you earn both currencies depending on your rank, just like jobs, which are Utopia coin, which is used for ranking fights and other things, and the Western coins, which is used for that stat boosting arcade machine at your base. They're also pretty quick to do, and it focuses on combat, which is the best part of the gameplay. This is where I spent all my time making my money, and I would suggest you do the same as well. There's not a lot available from the start, though as you progress through the game, more open up that give you different fights that are a bit harder and give you more money. There are other little things you could do in this open world. As mentioned, there are t-shirt shops in a sense, as each shirt icon needs to reach a specific goal in order to get their t-shirt. So you have one that asks for straight up cash, another that asks you to kill X amount of enemies, another that asks you to reach a certain amount of money, and so on. To be honest, I kinda wish they would just let you buy all of them like in part 2, but I guess this was done to add some challenge in getting them all, and having you put more time in the game. You don't have to worry, as these shops never disappear, so there's no time limit in which you can get them, thank God. There is, however, a limit in how many shirts each shop has, but that's really it. I do like the fact that you can get the shirt and not have to equip it right away if you don't want to, and have it teleported to your motel. Also, if you want to keep checking shirts as you unlock them, you must complete a mission such as defense missions for them to refresh. They also brought back those little visual novel sections they had in Travis X again, which is pretty neat as it tells little side stories, like a guy wishing to remove apple pie from this world. And these usually pop up on the map and all you have to do is run back and forth to complete them. You can also find your cat's kids, scorpions to cook, trees to plant which will spawn money for you later, collectible cards to give the bishop, statues to break, and Mr. Doubleganger pops up again to play a game of hide and seek. I have one big problem with these specific side activities. They don't appear as icons, and the most you could do is equip a chip that rumbles and makes a sound when you're close, but only if you're off your fucking bike. And Travis does not have super speed like he did in No More Heroes 1. He has a generic sprint button that barely does the job. I mean, what the fuck? This is so stupid and doesn't make you want to try to find it yourself. I wish the Naomi tree gave you something you could make to have it show up on the map. I will say that all the side activities I mentioned, not counting the shirts, do give you rewards which can be money, materials, or a shirt, so they at least make you feel like you're making progress, be it for collectibles or boss fights. Since I mentioned the boss fights, I guess I'll tackle those, which I can say are not bad at all. The fights themselves are rather fun, and they try to mix things up here and there, such as starting on the ground going to space for a mech battle, to, I kid you not, an extreme game of musical chairs. Also, before most boss fights, you can stop by a sushi stand and grab some food. You can eat in, which will give you a certain buff for your next fight, or do some takeout so you can heal yourself or give yourself a temp boost. These are actually really helpful since unlike past No More Hero games, there are no health chests around fights, be they boss or normal. There are also some stands located on the world map as well, and the song that plays for the stand is actually really good that I actually stayed in the stand a little longer to hear it. What I was not a fan of is they completely got rid of boss levels, which means once you start a ranking fight, you watch a cutscene, then get right into the boss encounter, which kinda blows. I enjoyed going through an actual level killing grunts, seeing the look of the level before finally confronting the boss, as it amped me up for the fight. The closest thing we get to that here is Midori's fight, which has you going through a spooky school in first person mode, which was a pretty funny jab at those first person horror games. There are other letdowns when it comes to gameplay that I haven't mentioned yet. One of them, which you probably noticed through all my gameplay, is the lack of different weapons. No More Heroes 1 had multiple weapons, and No More Heroes 2 improved on that with how they were used, as you had 4 visually unique weapons, and not counting the default weapon, each of them felt useful depending on how you wanted to play, and could be switched on the fly. In this game, you're stuck with one katana, and I know that depending on your attention, you can see a little bit of peon in one of the combo animations, but that just doesn't cut it at all. The excitement of getting a new weapon is gone, which takes a bit out of the game. You also have the lack of multiple characters to play as. In No More Heroes 2, they introduced 2 characters you can mess around with, which were Shinobu and Henry, with both feeling different from Travis, so it wasn't boring. Hell, even Travis Strikes Again had this, though of course not on the level of No More Heroes 2. In this, it would have been a real treat to have more than just Travis to play as again, and it feels like one of the reasons they wrote the story the way they did was so they could have a reason why Shinobu and Batgirl didn't come back as playable characters. This one is a mixed bag. When it comes to the open world parts, the game runs okay, though you do notice some frame drops. And I do like the fact they tried to up the variety when it comes to the look of the areas, as each do look different from one another, be it the normal city of Santa Destroy or the war-torn Call of Duty inspired area. Though most of these spots don't have much going on in them, so they still feel rather dead. The handheld mode for the open world is another story, as you notice the frame drop more, and it looks like someone wiped Vaseline on my screen. The game looks and runs its best on both docked and portable mode whenever it's in an isolated area, so like the defense missions and boss fights. The game is pretty vibrant and colorful, especially when you're in combat, as not only blood splashes everywhere, but neon colors as you hack away. And it's great seeing these stylish effects pop when you're popping off heads or slicing bodies in half. I also never got tired of seeing the final blow screen when you clear out enemies. The character design for most of the characters look great, such as Travis and Sylvia. I say most because some of the alien bosses just come off looking dull, just flat out ugly, with some exceptions of course with characters like Fu, who has an amazing design, and others like Gojo and Midori, who look pretty damn good as well. At least some of the boss fight areas come out looking a little better. I also like we got the game guide manual back from Travis Strikes Again, giving us hints on new enemies with some comments from Travis and his cat. There's even awesome intros and outros with music and credits before you start your journey to your next boss and after you kill them. You even get a see you next time card with a cute chibi version of a character. There's also a video podcast we get to see between Travis and Bishop talking about their favorite shows and movies, with even a guest sometimes dropping by, adding more personality to the cast. As usual for a No More Heroes game, the voice acting is great, with only one major difference for a certain character which is noticeable and kind of a letdown, though I won't spoil it. Besides some weird sound syncing issue in the cutscene after the first boss, there was no other weird glitches during my playthrough.
To take downs in number 10 ranked Black Hole. And you have been recognized as number 10 in the galactic rankings.
Number 10 in what rankings?
Rules are rules. The battle has already begun. You are in the eye of the storm, so you cannot escape or just disappear. You can only fight here.
So I need to win, huh?
Yes.
And what happens once I take everyone out? For reals? I'll do it. Please, let me do it.
I know I might be coming off harsh on No More Heroes 3 since I brought up the lack of multiple katanas, different playable characters, boss levels, and other issues. Though that doesn't mean I had an awful time. The game still has fun combat, tons of style, is over the top, and still has tons of personality as well with its cast of characters a la Travis and Fu. It just felt like the game could have been more, especially with the entries that came before it. I spent about 27 hours in the game, and if you're looking for replay value, you can find the stuff around the map like the kittens. And after beating the game, you can continue playing so you don't have to start a new game if you miss something. There's also New Game Plus, which carries pretty much everything over like stats and money, and you can pick a harder difficulty if you're up for it. While it might not be the best hero, it's still a good one, so go out there and help Travis save the world by killing a bunch of aliens. I hope you enjoy my thoughts on this game, and for gamer's sake, keep gaming.